Hey, good afternoon. 5:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, an attorney for President Trump, Will Scharf, is here at 5:30 as the left sprints to put Donald Trump in jail. Will it happen? The president, former President Trump, weighing in on that moments ago. We'll have all of that for you ahead. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As we started the program today, some claims from Hamas that they accepted a ceasefire deal, which is weird because Israel hasn't actually offered them one. That certainly not the one that they claim to be accepting. And this comes just ahead of Israel going full bore into Rafah. They are dropping leaflets and sending all sorts of notifications to the civilian population there that now's the time to leave. Now's the time to leave. For more on that and so much more, I want to bring in Congressman Mike Waltz. He is from Florida, 6th Congressional District down there, and a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, good to have you back with us, sir.
Yeah, good to be with you. Thanks, man.
A little bizarre to see the headlines today that Hamas has accepted a deal. I was like, really? That wouldn't that suggest Israel made an offer?
Well, there's been a series of offers on the table, and Hamas continued to move the goalpost. Sadly and tragically, it was on the number of hostages they would give, and a number of analysts are suggesting because that's all they have left that are still alive, and of course our heart breaks for them, but also, you don't hear any of these protesters on any of these college campuses talking about the 5 Americans that have been locked into a tunnel, kidnapped, and that are literally we know. From the folks that have been released that are being raped and tortured in captivity and are being used as human shields for the Hamas leadership. So don't hear that out on Columbia's lawn, do you?
So no, I don't. And in fact, why is the White House of the position that that Israel can't go into Rafah? Why are they so against it? In other words, why are they taking Hamas's position on that question?
Yeah, Hamas is hiding anywhere between 20 to 30,000 of its fighters in a population of 3 million refugees. I mean, Israel is literally tactically is someone that I've been repeatedly shot at by terrorists, hiding behind women and children. But Hamas is doing that at scale. Israel is at a huge disadvantage, and yet you have this moral equivalency coming out of the White House. That's just shameful. Look, at the end of the day, the progressives are the tail wagging the dog here. This is all about Michigan. And when you have, and to somebody that has to turn out voters, when you have over 100,000 Democrats in the dead of a Michigan winter still drive after work to register a protest vote against you, you've got a massive base problem. So they know it, and now they're literally altering U.S. policy because of it.
Now I want to talk about that. So there's this report from over the weekend in Axios that the White House all but confirmed today that the Biden administration has been now blocking at least one ammunition shipment to Israel. Take a listen. Here's a reporter question to John Kirby today at the White House.
Did the United States put a pause on arms shipment to Israel? Is that reporting correct?
I'm not going to confirm that reporting.
Which means it's true. So why is it that they're doing that? And I thought, isn't it your job in Congress to authorize that ammunition to be sent over? Why is the White House interfering with it for electoral purposes?
Well, let's just rewind the clock to an entire impeachment proceeding on the basis of then President Trump supposedly withholding foreign aid that Congress had authorized and appropriated for political reasons. So isn't this that? And if so, is that grounds for impeachment if he's withholding aid for political purposes? But look, this is on top of essentially turning a blind eye to the International Criminal Court that is going after Israel. This is on top of the abstaining in the UN for that anti-Israel vote. And then you've got the State Department press spokesperson talking about sanctioning an ally's military unit in the middle of a war. And you add all of that up, and this is nothing but pandering to the left. And I can tell you there is a canyon's worth of difference between terrorists that target civilians, torture, rape, and kidnap them as part of their tactics, and a democratically elected civilian overseen military that kills civilians by accident as the terrorists are hiding amongst them. And it's just a night and day difference.
Don't you think it's a little bizarre, like the juxtaposition, Israel and Ukraine? So the Biden administration's position is in Israel is like, we're going to stop sending you ammunition. We're not going to let you finish the job. We're not going to let you, this close to victory, actually succeed. Meanwhile, with Ukraine, the idea that there would be a victory of any kind slipped away a long time ago. We're sending them endless amounts of ammunition, and it's only leading to more death and destruction. Is there a reason that the whole world is so upside down?
Politics. I mean, somehow this has become the Democrats' favored war to stop autocracy with Ukraine, but with Israel, when you're talking about stopping a terrorist-led autocracy, somehow we have to tie their hands. And it really is, I think, a shame to see these wars become so partisan. But what is so frustrating to me about Israel is everything the administration talks about is policy. How can what is your end state? What does success look like? Tell us what your tactics are. And then with Ukraine, it's blank check, don't ask questions, or you're pro-Russia.
Exactly.
And my frustration with Ukraine is if we would simply drop the price of oil around the world on international markets below $50 a barrel by flooding the world with cleaner American oil and gas, Putin's economy is done. He's in economic survival mode. His war machine would dry up very quickly. But you know what? So would Iran's. And you would literally solve both problems with one stone. But the administration's climate agenda runs squarely against it. And again, that's back to pandering to the left.
And we've talked to so many energy experts here, and I'm sure you know too, Congressman. It doesn't even require a ramp-up time. A new well, for instance, takes like 5 years to open up.
Right.
But if you announce that you're opening all those new wells, it instantly impacts global oil prices. So you could do this overnight, what you're talking about.
And the same thing, and they try to parse their words. When you announce a freeze on LNG exports, and the administration says, no, that's just future ones, not the current ones. Well, but you're doing the exact opposite, right? You're putting a freeze on capital markets, and then where does the world go to? They go to Iran, they go to Venezuela. They actually go to they go to Russia, and Russia is exporting more oil and gas than it ever did. They're just doing it through China and India instead of pipelines to Europe. It's the most asinine, backwards thing I've ever seen. But again, he's got a base problem. We see it in the polling. So he's pandering to the left on climate, and he's pandering to the left on Gaza.
I want to get to more questions with you about Russia and Ukraine in a moment, but real quick on what else is happening in Gaza. There's this administration plan apparently in the works to import Gaza into America. They claim that they want to bring all sorts of refugees in from Gaza, which has led to a bunch of questions that I have, and I know others do too, which is, well, first of all, how do you vet the kind of people you would bring in from Gaza? B, can't we get control of our own borders first before we start inviting others in? And C, aren't the people who are in Gaza, many of them are the ones who actually helped install Hamas as the ruling party there to begin with? So why would we bring Hamas people in? What's the answer here?
Well,
what do you know in Congress?
And you just add to that that we know UNRWA and Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, for that matter, in the West Bank, are literally teaching children to hate the West, hate Israel, and are teaching that terrorism is a legitimate form of resistance to children. So it's a huge issue. I have to tell you, the wide open border is. This is an attack waiting to happen. Chris Wray is covering his rear end. He's repeatedly coming to Congress saying, I've warned you guys, and I want to tell them, turn your SUV around and drive up to DHS. Don't tell us. Go tell Mayorkas.
But that's a stunt.
And shut the damn border down.
Every time Chris Wray says that, though, my spidey senses go up, because what I think he wants is more money and power. He's not actually trying to fix the problem. He just wants the FBI to have more stuff from you.
Well, fair enough. But at the same time, I think he's also, when something does go boom, when we have the next San Bernardino, we have the next Pulse nightclub, or God forbid, the next 9/11, whether he gets more or less from us, he's going to say, look, you heard it from me. I warned you. And at the end of the day, they're not actually doing what it takes to secure the country.
Not at all. Okay, so as I mentioned, I want to talk Russia and Ukraine with you as well. I'm seeing, more worrying headlines about what's happening with Ukraine. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people dead. What's the estimate? Do you have, what are the government estimates on the number of people who've died now in that conflict?
Oh, it's well into the hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
I don't know if it's gotten into the millions yet. I'm actually going to get a classified brief and get updated tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's been absolutely devastating. The lesson we should learn from it all, especially as it pertains to Taiwan, is, I don't know, arm your allies beforehand, and maybe you prevent the war in the first place, rather than what we did in Ukraine, which was no, that's too escalatory, that's too provocative. We don't want to give Putin, kind of the excuse that he's looking for, and left it wide open. So we should do that in Taiwan. But the other thing that just frustrates the hell out of me are the Europeans when it comes to Ukraine. They have plenty of ammo to give. I can point people to articles and reporting that what they are giving is junk. The Germans gave a batch of tanks that were so bad that the Ukrainians gave them back, as desperate as they are. They said, this will cost us more to fix these things. So just take them back, Germany. And I want to know then how the Germans then valued them when it comes to valuing their contributions, because I've gotten the Pentagon to admit that there's no common standard. And I think they are overvaluing what they're giving.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with the things that are being given. And on Europe, I remember it was midway through this conflict that Poland was reeling back on how much they were sending to Ukraine. I'm like, wait, Poland? Everybody keeps telling me Poland's going to be invaded by Russia next. They clearly don't feel that way. That's not their attitude. They're like, maybe we shouldn't send so much to Ukraine. And this is why guys like Trump are out there going, wait a second, you're asking for us to help everything. This is Europe. Yeah. This is Europe, and you're barely scratching the surface in your support.
Well, it's just look, American people, go deeper in your pockets, because European politicians don't want to have to make the difficult political choices with their social programs. And they know at the end of the day, which has just happened, that will come bail them out. Look, We can't afford it anymore. We literally can't. The interest on our debt, the interest alone, is now eclipsing our entire defense budget for the first time in American history. And oh, by the way, we need to put every dollar of it to focus on countering China. Our recruiting is down, our readiness is down, our end strength is down. The ships in our Navy are old and having a harder and harder time coming out of maintenance. The Marine Corps, just its largest and newest amphibious ship, just had to turn around and go back to port. It was so broken. So the Europeans have got to step up. And classic Washington, D.C. swamp think, right now only 11 out of 31 NATO nations are contributing the minimum of 2% of their GDP to defense. Watch, they're going to have a big summit in Washington, D.C. this summer, NATO summit, and they're all going to pat themselves on the back that, no, we're up to 18 out of 31 now. It's the tyranny of low expectations. It's like telling a kid that has gotten an F for 50 years that they should be proud they finally get a D.
Yeah, my favorite part of that saga, though, is that some of those countries are now saying they're going to up their spending because they're worried Trump might be coming back to office. Which is my favorite thing. Trump's not even in office yet, and he's making these guys meet their NATO obligations. That's the best part of it.
And look, the ones on the front line, the Baltics, Poland, Romania, they're contributing. It's the big economy, Germany, Spain, France, Italy, that aren't doing anywhere near enough. And, oh, by the way, Ukraine just asked them for Patriots, and they all said no. And I could point people to that reporting as well. So this is, just enough is enough. They should be emptying out their warehouses if it's the threat that everyone says it is.
Exactly right. All right, Congressman Mike Waltz, good to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much for that update. We'll have you back again soon. Thank you.
Okay.
That Chris Plant, he's got a great show. You should listen to it right here on WMAL. I had fun with Chris this weekend. We got to go hang out, a bunch of great conservatives all together. We went to the Gold Cup out in Virginia and saw the ponies run. And they were jumping over bushes and all sorts of things in the middle of the misty Saturday. It was neat, though. You know what's cool about it? People fall off the horses. That's one of it's and luckily, as far as I can tell, nobody was seriously injured. So that's the kind of good, clean fun you want. But the horses, one of the races, they had 4 horses start the race. Only 2 finished. It's like, where'd the other two go? Well, they fell somewhere in the back. Holy cow. So not sure what happened to the horses, but the people I think are fine. I think they're totally fine. It was neat to watch these guys all running, and it was cool to be there with Chris and his best gal, and Corey and Ganamore, the whole crew. We were all out there. We had a great time, and just fun hanging out in Virginia. Just so much fun. Robert is in Frederick now, line 4. Robert, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. I want to talk about Trump in court today.
Sure. Maybe Trump's attorney could help out. I know I'm short on time, but I'm not understanding. There's the judicial rules of ethics, I think it is, Rule 100.3, Section E, subsection D, Section III.
Wow.
There's a lot in there that the judge, once the judge says that Trump is in contempt, the judge is now a witness to a crime. The judge can't be a party because he's to the hearing now because he's a witness against the defendant in another crime. That's in the rules. That's not me making this up.
But normally though, a judge can hold someone in his courtroom in contempt, right? That seems like a normal thing that somebody could do.
Right, but as soon as he holds somebody in contempt, the judge is a witness to a crime. And in order for due process to work its way through the system, the judge must recuse himself. Now, the defendant can motion for the judge to recuse himself. The judge can't hear that motion. The motion must be given to the president judge, not the judge overhearing it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Robert, about just this guy recusing himself in the first place. He's a Biden donor. Why are we letting a Biden donor manage a case against Trump that's clearly a political hit job? That doesn't make any sense at all. He should have been recused a long time ago for that reason alone. And now, of course, we're getting into this game. He wants to throw Trump in jail.
Right. I think it's the same section, 100.3, Section E, Section 1B, I think it is. I think it's 1B
that covers
or 1A.
That. Well, I'm glad you're here, Robert. Someone's got to read all that. Thank you for that. And you're right. I'll ask coming up Will Scharf about what's going on in that courtroom and what recourse Donald Trump, his campaign, his attorneys have in the face of all of this out-of-control tyranny. That's ahead, just moments away. Good afternoon to you. 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A short while ago, President Trump leaving that courthouse yet again in New York under threat that he may be thrown in jail for violating an unconstitutional gag order. The judge making that threat today. Here's President Trump on what might happen next.
Because this judge has given me a gag order and said you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day. But what's happening here is a disgrace, and the appellate courts ought to get involved.
Yeah, so the president would like the appellate courts to get involved. Will they? Let's ask one of his attorneys. Will Scharf is a candidate for Attorney General in Missouri and an attorney for President Trump. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to talk about the contours of this gag order first. I know that it's crazy restrictive. He's not allowed to even talk about Matthew Colangelo, the guy who came from the Department of Justice under Joe Biden, now works as a line prosecutor for Alvin Bragg and led off the hearing here. He's not allowed to mention that, which is crazy to me. How restrictive is this gag order, if you could describe it for us?
Yeah, it's incredibly restrictive. It says that basically we can't make statements relating to potential witnesses and their testimony. We can't make statements about any member of the prosecution team other than DA Alvin Bragg, so I will not say the name that you just mentioned. We're not allowed to talk about any family members of the prosecution or of the judge, which has obvious relevance in terms of our motion to recuse Judge Merchan off of this case. And part of the problem here, we've dealt with these gag orders before, most notably in D.C., but this gag order is very vaguely worded. It doesn't really clearly define what is and isn't prohibited, particularly with respect to talking about witnesses. And as a result, it's having a chilling effect on our ability to speak, President Trump's ability to speak, even beyond just I guess, a more narrow interpretation of what the gag order says. And that actually came out in court the other day when Judge Merchan basically said, if it's close to the line, if you're thinking about it, just don't say it, which, speaks to the unconstitutionality of the gag order, speaks to the fact that it is chilling speech, that it's not allowed to chill constitutionally.
So, I want to get to the judge's reasoning. Inside of the gag order itself, he seemed to lay out an explanation for why he adopted this gag order. And I read it and was horrified by it because it seems unconstitutional. But the basic logic of it looks like it's, well, if President Trump talks about someone or any of his team talks about someone, they may feel intimidated. Therefore, you're not allowed to discuss anybody around this case. Do I have that right?
Yeah, basically. And they also rely on a constitutionally impermissible heckler's veto theory, that if President Trump says something that may be totally fine, other people may say things or do things that would then intrude on the process. So constitutionally, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take actions of third parties and attribute them to the principle in terms of restrictions on free speech. So this gag order is just deeply problematic for a large number of reasons. And I would just add that the core of the First Amendment, the absolute core, is political speech, is political electioneering. The courts have consistently held that. And the courts have consistently rejected, historically, attempts to apply gag orders to political candidates. This is the first gag order of its kind ever to apply to a political candidate like President Trump the way that it does. And that's just a real problem. We're at the height of a presidential election, and President Trump can't speak about matters of public importance. It's constitutionally totally invalid.
As of today, the judge is holding that President Trump has violated his gag order on 10 occasions, thus fining him $10,000 in total, which is the statutory limit in New York. He does say that he has available to him the ability to throw President Trump in jail. He has made that threat twice now over the course of these findings of the violation of the gag order, in his view. But this one seemed pretty insistent today. Going forward, this court will have to consider a jail sanction. Give us a sense of your team's reaction to that he's now threatening to imprison Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, look, we're challenging the gag order in the appellate courts. We're hoping the appellate division gives us some relief on a speedy timeline, because this is just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. I mean, the idea that the violation that was in court today related to a pretty innocuous statement that President Trump made that I don't believe violated the gag order. President Trump certainly didn't believe it violated the gag order, about the jury pool composition in New York. Not really controversial at all, certainly not within the heart of the gag order. So the idea that Judge Merchan feels empowered to throw President Trump in jail over, these sort of borderline cases where he may or may not have actually violated that's just a power trip, and it's deeply scary. I mean, I think we're down the road of sort of a banana republic here, where you have the leading candidate for president being threatened with jail for speaking his mind about an issue of public importance. I mean, it's just totally violative of our constitutional traditions.
You said you have this before the appellate court. How quickly could they move? What is possible here?
So we filed, actually, I think it was a couple weeks ago, in front of the appellate division, and they haven't given a ruling yet. I don't want to sort of jump the gun, but we are going to be taking further action this week to try to queue that up for an appellate decision. And we're certainly hopeful that we get a result quickly, because with each passing day, irreparable constitutional harm is being imposed on President Trump and our team by this gag order. So I'm certainly hopeful that they move on it. From there, if we don't get the judgment that we want, we'd have to go up to the New York Court of Appeals. And from there, we could potentially take this to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, that's how serious an issue it is. Hopefully the trial is over long before that would be a possibility. And hopefully we get some relief by the New York appellate courts, who have actually been pretty good to us in other cases. The civil case where they overruled Goron a bunch of times. We feel good about that court, so hopefully they do the right thing.
I know that you're here, of course, to give President Trump good legal advice. But it was interesting to hear him today say that this threat that he may be thrown in jail by Judge Merchan is a sacrifice that he would do any day. What is his? Give us a sense of how his demeanor is right now around all of this. It's a pretty big deal if a judge threatens to throw you in jail. Is he sincere about this?
Yeah, President Trump cares deeply about the Constitution and the rule of law. I saw this when I was working with him on our presidential immunity appeal that was up before the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago. He believes, really from the bottom of his heart, that what they're doing to him with all of these cases is not just attempting to do damage to him. It's really doing damage to the fabric of our republic. And I think he really means that when he says it. Now, I certainly hope it doesn't get to that. I think it would be outrageous for Judge Merchan to attempt to do that, and I hope the judge knows that. But we'll see how it plays out.
Do you think that that Donald Trump and his campaign are prepared to conduct a campaign from jail?
I don't think that's a realistic possibility. I'll say that, and I just don't think it's going to come to that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's the threat today. Let's talk about the length of the trial. The president indicated today that the prosecution, the Alvin Bragg side of the House, is now suggesting that this trial may go on for another 2 to 3 weeks. Can you give us a sense of what that conversation was?
Yeah, that was towards the end of court today. Judge Merchan, after the jury was out, Judge Merchan asked the lawyers for an estimate on how much time is left. That was the prosecution's estimate. It's worth noting there are a couple of days where court will be off in the next couple of weeks. But 2 to 3 weeks, I think, is in line with what we were expecting here, 2 to 3 weeks more. They have a lot more witnesses to get through. And then we'll see, what evidence we need to put up in terms of witness testimony, documents, et cetera. That'll depend on, I guess, the perceived strength of the prosecution's case. Right now, we perceive the strength of the prosecution's case as being very, very weak. So that could affect the timing as well. But I think we're all hoping to get President Trump out of court and back on the campaign trail as quickly as possible.
So when they make an estimate of 2 to 3 weeks, they're only talking about the prosecution's case. They're not even talking about the time required for your side to present the counterargument.
That's correct. The defense case and then closing arguments. And then, after the jury is charged, which can be a complicated process, they've got to go and decide this mess. So we're in for this is not wrapping up anytime soon. We're in for a little wait here.
So just finally on this time issue, that suggests to me that this is looking more like at least 4 weeks more of trial.
That could very well be the case.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll see. But the thing, the big takeaway I'm getting from you here, Will Scharf, and thank you for your time today, is that you are moving with all due haste to try and file to higher courts here to stop Judge Merchan from what you have already laid out many times to be a very unconstitutional gag order in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, we believe this gag order absolutely has to be overturned. We're going to do everything we can to do that. It's just ridiculous, the amount of speech that it's chilling, really, at the core of the First Amendment. We dealt with something similar with Judge Chutkan in D.C. We got the D.C. Circuit to overrule really the most problematic parts of that gag order. We're certainly hoping that the same happens in New York.
Well, once you're liberated from this gag order, I'll be super pleased to talk to you about all of the things that we've been talking about on the show. I know that you're hemmed in right now, unfortunately. Will Scharf, thank you very much for your time as always, sir.
I greatly look forward to that. Thanks for having me.
Can't wait. That's Will Scharf, candidate for Attorney General in Missouri and an attorney now for President Trump. And you can see the eggshells he's got to walk on because the same gag order that's imposed on Trump is also imposed on his legal counsel. And that forbids him from even being able to talk about the composition of the team that's prosecuting Trump. He can mention, he said, only one guy, Alvin Bragg. You heard him say his name, but he can't mention Matthew Colangelo. He can't say, he straight up said when I asked him about it, he's like, can't talk about the guy you just mentioned because that's in the gag order. How absurd are we getting? Very, very. So there's a lot about that Matthew Colangelo that's worth bringing up, the kind of stuff that I'd want to talk to Will Scharf about, but can't given the gag order that's imposed on him. And I'd hate to have those guys find another $1,000 or have Trump thrown in jail just because of the interview. But here's some of the other pieces. Colangelo worked for Letitia James. They were getting together this big case to find Trump in a case that involved no victim hitting him, slapping him with a $500 million fine. They were able to bring it down in court, but still hundreds of millions of dollars imposed on Trump, a fine that he had to pay up. And then and that was the case where, again, no victims. These are the banks were like, we weren't defrauded. He paid us back. It was totally fine. Letitia James and Judge Angeron, these psychopaths, they're like, no. These are lefties. They're just trying to wreck his presidential ambitions and hurt him, because that's the spirit of the American left now, unfortunately. So that's how that played out. And Matthew Colangelo was there at the seminal moments of that entire effort to take down Trump. He goes to the United States Department of Justice, number 3 in the entire Department of Justice under Joe Biden, under Merrick Garland. And then he heads off to what every legal analyst we've talked to says is an insane career move, which is go from number 3 at the Justice Department down to a line prosecutor for Alvin Bragg, now working on the Trump case, going after him, arguing in court, literally making the arguments in court, asking the questions. It's Matthew Colangelo. Trump's not allowed to say that. He can't walk straight from the courtroom and say, I just heard from Matthew Colangelo, who was speaking in that court. He cannot say those words. That's restrictive, unconstitutional. The other piece here that is worthy of note about this guy is the headlines that are bopping around today, mostly in conservative media. I haven't seen it in legacy press. Ex-Biden official prosecuting Trump, Matthew Colangelo, was paid $12,000 by the DNC for political consulting in 2018. Oh, so this Colangelo character was on the Democrat National Committee's payroll during the Trump administration, 2018. Breitbart, Matthew Colangelo, an ex-Biden Justice Department official who delivered the prosecution's opening statement for former President Donald Trump's business records trial in New York, was paid by the Democratic National Committee for political consulting in 2018, raising further eyebrows regarding the integrity of Democrat District Attorney Alvin Bragg's entire case. Colangelo recently joined Bragg's office after spending years targeting the former president, and not only in his capacity as a senior DOJ official. Colangelo also worked for Attorney General Letitia James, who launched the infamous civil fraud case against the former president. According to the Washington Examiner, Bragg valued Colangelo's broad knowledge of the Trump organization. He brought in a Trump guy specifically. According to a New York Times report published at the end of 2022, during the same time frame that Bragg was seeking to ramp up his prosecution efforts against Trump. But it gets worse, as Colangelo was also paid for his consulting services to the DNC. Fox News Digital first reporting the figures, citing the FEC records that showed the DNC Services Corp. Democrat National Committee paid Colangelo 2 times on January 31st of 2018, $6,000 each time. Per Fox, quote, at the time, Colangelo was serving in then New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's office as the Deputy Attorney General for Social Justice. Oh, yeah. What a role. Can you imagine the type of crap that they're involved in? The Deputy Attorney General for Social Justice. Assuming the role from Bragg. This is so incestuous. Bragg at the time was appointed as Chief Deputy Attorney General. Just a month after Colangelo received the payments from the DNC in June of 2018, Underwood, with Colangelo as Executive Deputy Attorney General, filed a lawsuit against the Trump Foundation. The lawsuit claimed that Trump used the foundation's charitable assets to pay off his legal obligations. The Trump Foundation ultimately agreed to dissolve in December of 2018. So here he is. He was also involved in getting the Trump Foundation to dissolve. The same guy. He keeps popping up over and over and over. He's an evil Forrest Gump. He's everywhere. He's at every event. And here he is again. And guess who can't talk about it? Donald Trump or people like Will Scharf, the entire Trump campaign? Yeah, that sounds totally constitutional. Yeah, no big deal. It's just entire political hit job. They're not allowed to mention it. It's 5. Little thought experiment for you. If you were a White House official and you were responsible for Joe Biden's schedule and you were trying to reduce the chances that he would say something stupid at a highly sensitive event, you probably wouldn't schedule him to give a speech at the Holocaust Museum. That's what's happening tomorrow. Joe Biden is giving that speech. We'll see if the anti-Israel lunatics show up. They may very well. Lee Zeldin, the former congressman, is with us tomorrow on the Vince Coglianese Show. And the great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.